DeCastro the third.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, Rolando.
Sure. Well, hey, thanks for having me, Cade,
No problem.
Miranda, everybody. You guys hear me okay? All right.
Let me see if I can check on chat.
Sure.
Okay, I got two monitors here. Manage stream. Here we go. I might need to change some of the things.
Sure. I like the flag or the banner behind you, by the way,
Thank
the
you,
pretty
thank
banner.
you. All right. Yeah, they should be able to hear you. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. So if you want to get Photoshop rolling,
Sure. Let me, do
um,
you want me to share the screen or?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know you guys don't want to stare at my face the whole time, so let's see here. Okay. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So my name's Rolando. These are some projects I've been working on, just kind of side projects in my spare time. Uh, I consider myself a concept artist and illustrator in terms of my specialization. And I mostly work on environments and props. Uh, and I like to, most of my background is in games, like educational games.
Mhm.
And I love sci-fi. And these are kind of some pieces. I'll kind of move this here real quick.
Okay.
Just kind of zoom through. And what I'll do a quick demo on just kind of like a sci-fi environment, so you kind of get an idea of what my workflow is.
Mhm.
Um,
Wow.
and these are just kind of so yeah, these three pieces I worked on the past month. So I think it took about I think each piece would take about 6 to 8 hours to complete
Mhm.
total. Some of them a little bit less, but uh, it's a lot of fun, especially the detail. I'm sure you guys have seen like Dan Baldwin's process, like he goes from black and white,
Mhm.
so monochromatic, to color. And I kind of like to take the same approach, but sometimes going into color straight away also is good. Um,
I really
you know,
love the style on this. It's kind of fantasy mixed with cyberpunk,
yeah,
futuristic kind of stuff. I
definitely.
really love that.
Yeah, I appreciate
Um,
it.
so for the people just popping in, tell us a little bit about like your experience throughout the years.
Sure. Well, my most updated experience, I worked at a studio called Bitloft, and we created educational games. And we were in the beta stage, uh, initially creating one game on biology.
Mhm.
So it was an educational game for high school students that was supposed to be online. And this was prior to the whole pandemic. So this was back in 2018, 2019. Um, and the funny thing about the whole situation was we were originally supposed to do one game, but it eventually blew up into four games that we
Mm.
had to deliver on the same deadline. So
Uh-oh.
kind of imagine we got the message that we had to deliver four games in December, and we had to deliver it by April, so the beta version.
Ooh.
And we were still kind of working out the kinks for the first one. And the platforms for the game were going to be like PC, Android, just kind of mobile apps for the most part too.
Mhm.
And we also were able to play test it at PopCon 2018. And so we were able to have hundreds of people kind of play test it, kind of see what the what the problems were.
Mhm.
And I can post a link to that too towards the end of the stream
For sure.
if you guys are interested in seeing that too. Um, but uh, but yeah, that's a little bit about myself. I also taught at Art Institute of Indianapolis for a couple of years prior to teaching on classes at
Mhm.
IUPUI, and I also when I'm not freelancing with concept art and illustration, I'm also doing caricature work. So let's see. I'm going to
Okay.
bring up some here. Let's see. So like this is my website. So this is some of the concept art that I would have done for Bitloft. So the crystal core.
I think we're only seeing Photoshop right now. You need to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all
Let's see
good.
here.
That kind of
You
reminds
guys.
me though. One of my questions was, how is your experience in being a lecturer, and have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed. I think. To me, it's like switching gears because I got to realize that I have to relate certain experiences in a way that's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I love to kind of connect with students because I feel that I wish I would have was taught certain things when I was with in your guys' position,
Mm-hmm.
especially like kind of like concept art stuff. I feel like I wasn't really taught that when I was a student.
Yeah.
So I try to take it from your guys' point of view. It may not be the most successful, obviously, sometimes, um, since I'm from the teacher side, but I try to see it from the student side, in terms of what they might want to learn, especially with 2D, because that's more of my specialization.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I was in a student's position, uh, what are kind of some of the weak points that I would want to improve on? So, like, maybe values, uh, color, even anatomy, or perspective, especially, like that's kind of a thing that's kind of glossed over a bit. Um, and also just kind of general, kind of the polished stage of things. But I really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah.
I think teaching online has been its own set of challenges, though, because of the disconnect. But
For
I think
sure.
for the most part, it's been pretty fun, as I'm sure it is from uh, your experiences, Cade. Like learning online, it's been different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it has. That kind of reminds me though. I talked a little bit earlier about how I flip flop a lot. I have given some thought to becoming a professor. So yeah, I went to visit a high school earlier and talk about our program, and I don't know. I was answering questions from the kids, and it really felt like rewarding. I really love teaching people stuff. So yeah.
Right on.
hmm
Gotcha.
Um,
All right.
so I saw from your LinkedIn, I believe that you graduated from Ball State. Is that right?
Yes.
How
Yes.
did how did you like your time there?
I really enjoyed it. What I learned mostly there was just kind of the importance of storytelling. The grad program, because I went in as a grad student, um, we didn't really have traditional classes, kind of like undergrads do. It was more like seminars.
Okay.
So we would kind of talk about ideas and kind of discuss kind of developing ideas.
hmm
Um, so let's say like for if I were going to develop an idea for this kind of concept, I would come up with not so much the technique, but just kind of the composition. So maybe I want to draw the eye towards this spider. So generally, size relationships are going to dictate where the eye looks. So maybe I would sketch in maybe just a box where the spider would be versus kind of smaller elements. So I would kind of think big picture, small picture.
hmm
So kind of, uh, and it was interesting too because I got to interact with like fine art students too. So you kind of get to get different perspectives on things, even though we didn't always agree on what constituted good art. But
hmm
it was, I think it was really important anyway, just to kind of see their perspective.
hmm
Um,
I like in that spider piece how you've shown a sense of scale with the boat in the background and the trees.
oh yeah,
Pretty clever.
yeah, definitely. And I know with IUPUI, do they have any concept art classes? I know Dan teaches some digital painting.
There's digital painting. As far as like the course being called concept art or anything like that, not that I know of.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I've considered taking some Heron classes, but it's just like classical art skills.
Sure,
Um,
definitely.
so off of that, I would like to ask, how did you fall into your field? Like, how did you find out that you wanted to be a concept artist?
Sure. Well, I'll answer this question too by kind of getting an idea. Like, do you guys feel overwhelmed? Like Kate, for example, do you feel overwhelmed with like trying to figure out what you want to do, like with so many kind of options,
Yeah,
kind of as a student?
sometimes they teach us a lot of different skills, so and I love all of them. So
Okay,
sometimes it can be hard to choose.
right. Well, the reason why I was asking, just kind of coming back to that question, I felt the same way when I was a student. I felt like coming in as a freshman, there are just so many things that kind of were really awesome. Like oh, graphic design, that looks cool. 3D, that looks cool, but it never really aligned with what I actually wanted to do. I
hmm
just kind of like the idea of it. But with concept art, I found that I enjoy doing it in my spare time and also for work. So what I found was most enlightening in terms of what I wanted to do was I originally wanted to be a 3D animator.
Hmm.
But what's interesting when I look back at my like kind of my old USB drive with all my old files, I would only have like 5 exercises of like animation, and the rest of it would be concept art paintings or digital paintings.
Okay.
And to me, I was like, oh, so I didn't know back then. It took me a few years to figure it out, but I enjoyed doing this more so than what was kind of the in thing at the time was like 3D animation. Everybody in the major wanted to be a 3D animator,
Hmm.
but I like doing this because I enjoy doing it, in my spare time. So that's kind of how I figured it out. Just not because necessarily it was what everybody wanted to do or it sounded cool, but it's just something I can see myself doing anyway without
Yeah.
getting paid for it.
Yeah. That's
So that was
pretty
kind of how I
cool.
came to that. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty good answer.
Yeah,
Having it as a hobby is I'll take that into consideration when I'm thinking about like what I really want to do. Uh,
definitely.
when
And
you
also too,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say one last thing on that. When you're kind of in crunch mode, you're gonna be stressed out. Like it doesn't happen a lot. Like when I was working at Bitloft, there was I'd say a 3 week period towards the end where we were trying to get things done really quickly.
Hmm.
Um, and crunch time doesn't happen all the time. It's only like rarely that it happens, but when it does happen, you get kind of stressed out. So you want to make sure that you're enjoying it because that's what's going to get you through it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if you don't enjoy it like in your gut, then it's going to be kind of hard to
Hmm.
sustain in the long term. I think so. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, on that note, how did your career progress after college after you decided that you wanted to be a concept artist?
yeah, um, I actually started at an indie studio called Puka, and me and Thomas Marshall, he was the head of the studio at the time, and I helped I created concept art with him and the team, and we weren't getting paid for it at the time, but it was a good experience, and eventually kind of snowballed to me getting freelance work like illustration work, and then uh, eventually studio work.
Hmm.
Um, so it kind of starts off small, like it doesn't happen all at once, or at least for me it didn't. Uh, but for some people it does, especially if you kind of drastically move out of the state. I think it'll uh, up your chances exponentially. So anybody who wants to stay in indie, just kind of know that there are jobs here, but if you want to do something like this, like I actually plan on moving out of the state next year, barring any kind of complications of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So either good locations that I would keep in mind, everybody is Texas, Atlanta, LA, obviously, um, and even Seattle has some studios there too. Um, and if you're ever going out of the country, Poland has has a gaming community, and also the UK has some game studios there too. So it's not just the US. You can, if you want to travel, you can go there too.
Okay. We
Um,
got a question from chat here from Jason. He says, "Do you think your work for fun gets more attention than commissioned work?"
yes, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think mostly that might just be because I'm not allowed to show a lot of the work I do for contract. Like a lot of the work for Bitloft or any client work I do now, like there's some things I can't show just because I have an NDA or non-disclosure agreement. Um, like that wouldn't see the light of day until maybe a couple months from now or a year, kind of depending on uh, what the contract agreements are. But yeah, I would say personal work just because I'm more passionate about it, and also it kind of aligns with who I am as an artist.
Hmm.
Um, but you also kind of want to specialize in what you want to do so that employers can hire you for what you want to do. So, I don't know if that explained that well. Uh,
That sounds pretty good.
so like if you want to do like realistic stuff, like concept art, I wouldn't create a portfolio that's all like Blizzard style stuff because then you're going to send the wrong message.
Yeah.
And then if you do get contacted by Blizzard and get that job, you'll probably be miserable. you know.
Mhm.
Um, that being said, though, I would always focus on one area. So like one area of, so like let's say if you're doing 3D modeling, focus on one area of maybe like props or something and become really great at that. And then um, I think Clint Cook, he kind of put this the right way. It's like the crown jewel principle. Like you become great at one thing and then it gradually add to your arsenal, and you can become versatile because that's how you'll survive.
Mhm.
Because software is going to change. I mean, it already does right now, and like VR is going to become a huge thing. Um, have you guys heard of the software Quill? Like,
I have not.
yeah, it's a pretty cool. I could post you guys a link, but there's an artist that does VR graphics, and it's really interesting. I'll have to look into it myself, but uh, there's a really exciting future for you guys, and for us in terms of graphics. And I think uh, there like jobs that are not even in existence right now for graphics are going to be created, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But kind of knowing what you want to do, because I mean, let's be honest, there's so much in animation. It's such an umbrella term that it's overwhelming for anybody getting
Yeah.
in, knowing what they want to do. It was for me at least.
Mhm. Um, what advice do you have for aspiring artists trying to find work?
Yeah. Um, After this chat, I want to post a link to a PowerPoint I did for it's like freelancing. Kind of goes through some like tax stuff and pricing.
Okay.
But in terms of getting work, I would recommend obviously solidifying your portfolio. And honestly, you should also reach out to studio artists. I think studio heads might be a little harder to get a hold of, but you'd be surprised on how easy it is to reach out to your favorite artist, like let's say who works at like Naughty Dog or um, NetherRealm Studios or something, who's in Chicago. Like if you just email somebody and ask them, do you have any advice or what to put in portfolio? Like I emailed somebody from Bungie when I was a student, and I think he worked in like environments, but I think he does UI concept art too.
Mhm.
So he's kind of like a generalist concept artist. But he said that yeah, just emailing people is good. Because I mean, LinkedIn honestly is where a lot of people get work.
Mhm.
Um, it's not so much like, yeah, LinkedIn for social media is definitely where you'll get a lot of attention, but you also want to be proactive in terms of actually emailing people. Like I wouldn't be shy about it at all. Obviously, don't be obnoxious about it. Like don't kind of spam them or anything, but
Yeah.
short and sweet. Like a lot of these guys don't have a lot of time to kind of read a paragraph or two paragraphs of questions. And if you're going to ask them advice on art, make sure they're specific and not general. So, like for example, um, don't ask them like, "How do I get better at like detail or something?" Like, ask them something about how do I improve on values, or like, do you have any advice on color or
Mhm.
composition or something like that? Something really specific. And I know that still sounds super general, but yeah, reaching out is underrated. It's the equivalent of kind of going up to somebody and like talking to them like they did in the old days. But now they frown upon that. If you kind of like literally go to a studio, they'll kind of probably not want to see you. But
Yeah. They'll just shoo you away probably.
yeah, well, you hear stories back in the old days. Like I think there was this guy who he delivered a pizza to like I think it was Pixar or DreamWorks or I think it was Disney, and he put his resume in the pizza box, and he got a job that way. I think.
Wow.
I don't know if that'll work now, but I mean, I guess you got to balance thinking outside the box with just kind of communicating or emailing somebody or messaging somebody through LinkedIn.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me. I was watching a documentary, like a making of the like creative director behind Skyrim and all these huge games like Fallout. He started working for them in the 80s, I think. He didn't have very much experience, just, made little games on his computer and messed around with code. He walked in one day when he was 18 and he said, "Can I work here?" And they said, "Yeah." So, kind of a different world we live in now.
Yeah, it's a lot different. Well, when I was in grad school, one of my professors, I think he worked on, gosh, I was thinking it was either Pocahontas or Mulan, and he was saying that all it was like he obviously he's a great artist, but like back then it was sometimes just as easy as like picking up a brochure and applying, and like they'd hire you.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, obviously it was probably harder than that, but it's there's just more competition now. But honestly, like if your work's good, you'll get work. I mean,
Yeah.
you just want to make sure that, like I said, I'll post a few links, but you want to make sure that your portfolio is really like kind of focused. Like you don't want to have a website that has like 3D modeling, concept art, illustration, uh, 2D animation, like all of that in there. You want to have something that's like specialized. Even if it's like concept art, you might even want to have it subdivided into categories. So maybe this would be like personal projects or sci-fi, and then another one would be prop turnarounds or call out sheets for like a 3D artist to use in the pipeline.
Hmm.
Because what recruiters are looking for is usable art. Um, like me personally, like if I looked at my own website, and I'll post a link later too, I feel like I can have more call out sheets for concept art, like, and that's kind of like turnarounds and things like that. Just because that's what even Bitloft, like when I worked there, uh, all the concept art we made was usable, and we had like 3/4 views of a certain prop, and it was not for us, it was for the 3D team. Like somebody actually had to model it, rig it, skin it, all that stuff,
Hmm.
and animate it. Like it had to be not only streamlined design wise, but it had to be like efficient. Like the animator actually had to use it, so it couldn't be too complicated or else it would take too long to model, um, and it would take too long to animate in certain respects too. So
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. It brings me to think about like what kind of creative blocks do you have when you're trying to, work for a 3D modeler? Do you have like any kinds of roadblocks or circles, hoops you have to jump through?
oh, you're referring to like yeah. So when you're designing for like a 3D modeler, um, I know with concept art, it's you do a lot of 3D like paint overs. Like I know you guys have probably heard of that already, but um, like I would make something in Maya really quickly, like a base mesh.
Hmm.
Like these are all drawn from like I didn't use any 3D for this, but sometimes like let's say I did, like I might create a cube in Maya. So like this would be a plane
Hmm.
and then a cube, and then I would just kind of paint over that geometry using that as a base for perspective. Um, so, but any kind of roadblocks would just be kind of thinking, would this be easy for the 3D modeler to use, or is it clear enough?
Hmm.
Do I have all the views necessary for them to model it?
Yeah.
Things like that. So, um,
Have you ever
and burn it,
like
yeah.
worked a week on a project or something and then you bring it to a 3D modeler and they couldn't use it?
Yeah, honestly, most of the concepts, I would say 90% of the concepts they will not use. And that's you'll go through hundreds of concepts before they'll settle on one. Um, and that's why you kind of want to be quick about it. Actually, did you want me to get started on a demo maybe, or
Yeah, sure.
yeah, we can probably ask more questions too, or
Yeah.
um, but uh, but yeah, like they'll want to be quick. Even sometimes sketching like in real time in a studio would help. But so generally, I like to start with like a grayscale background. And I'm not sure. Do you guys ever use like I'm not sure how much you guys have probably taken some of Dan Baldwin's classes,
Hmm.
digital painting. I like to use the transfer. So if I go to brushes, go to brush settings. Let's see here. If I go to transfer and I make sure my print pressure is on, and I generally like to block things out with a marquee tool. So
Hmm.
I'll just kind of maybe block out, like, let's say your horizon line. So I'll start with grayscale first. So maybe I'll just kind of block that in. And then you guys see everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I'll use a clipping mask here so I can kind of paint within this box.
Hmm.
So that's Alt. So just kind of holding down Alt and just kind of seeing this box. And then I'm going to go back to, and if you guys have any questions too, definitely feel free to interrupt me or.
Okay. I have a question here, another one from Jason. He says, would doing freelance work till you have an opportunity to move to a spot that has a better design job market be a better idea than searching for full-time work?
Oh, so are you referring to maybe moving out of state first versus saving up here? Kind of like,
Um, yeah,
okay.
I believe so. Saving up from doing freelance work until you can move and search. Would that be
I
better?
think that's smart. I think that's smart. I was talking to Cade and Miranda before this stream, and I was kind of mentioning how you want to at least this is ideally you might want to have like 3 months saved up, and obviously that's harder. That's easier said than done with this kind of whole pandemic thing going on. But yeah, if you can save up, and especially like if you're living with the parents too, that's also a good. That's pretty ideal. Um, like I remember when I was in your guys' position, you know, I had the fortune of living with my parents at the time to kind of save up a bit for like a year or two before moving out and kind of going, uh, working kind of in the industry. But I would recommend, like, especially if you go to LA, like trying to maybe go with somebody and maybe kind of share a room or share like a studio space because obviously rent kind of goes without saying, it's really expensive out there.
Yeah.
Um, I remember one of my buddies from Ball State. She was excited because her she found a room that was like or a studio that was like $800 per month, but she found out that it was actually a sectioned off garage. Uh, so kind of people do that now, and if you're fine with living in a sectioned off place, I mean that's okay, I guess. But you want to keep in mind that saving up is definitely good first. So there's no shame in saving up a bit, staying here in the state if you're kind of reluctant first about moving out of the state.
Hmm.
Um, just make sure that you kind of keep in mind what your goals are. If you have a studio in mind, I think what always helps me is I keep a list of what my goals are,
Okay.
um, like studios and what kind of style I'm going for, especially a style like if it's realistic or uh, it's more kind of stylistic.
Hmm.
So it's a balance between, and there's no shame in working like a part-time job, like that's just a part-time job, like um, and if that allows you more time to not have to worry about a creative job in the meantime. So like if you're working at like Trader Joe's or something and then working on your art in the spare time, there's no shame in that. It's just a stepping stone to getting to where you want to be. It's not a permanent thing. It's just you're saving up. Just as long as you're mentally just kind of remember why you're doing it. Because when you go home, you can at least dedicate an hour to your art, or you know, so you're not just kind of going home and tired. It's tough though. It's tough, especially when when you feel like you're working a dead end job and freelance work isn't coming in. It's hard to reconcile like feeling like a failure or and trying to uh, you know kind of get over that and kind of create something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I hope that answers your question though. I know it's kind of
I think it did.
yeah.
Um, so after working as a freelance artist for so long, what was that experience like? I know clients can be very difficult sometimes.
Sure. um, with freelance, well, this kind of comes down to creating contracts. uh, you want to make sure that you believe in the project because you're sooner or later going to come across a client who is not going to like anything you do, and it's just going to drag out like for months.
Yeah.
Uh, just kind of speaking from experience. uh, like some projects, and you'll kind of want to at least have some kind of kill fee. And what that is it's guaranteeing that you'll get something out of it. So like some kind of fee based on the percentage of work you've done
Okay.
on the work. So like, for example, if it ends abruptly or something, you're at least kind of compensated for that work uh, in some way, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but
Okay. As
yeah,
a freelancer, have you ever had any strange requests?
well, thankfully I haven't had any weird, I mean, it kind of comes, it comes down to the integrity thing. Like if you're kind of asked to do, like I haven't been asked, but I've had friends who've been asked to do like I think hentai or something or some kind of weird stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's some people's thing, but you kind of have to figure out if that's kind of what you want. I mean, you're probably not going to put on your resume or anything, but you want to make sure that everything you put on your resume has some kind of dignity or like kind of
Absolutely.
have some kind of integrity behind what you do. Uh,
What kind of methods do you use to get better? I've been doing like some gesture drawing. I know that's when I ask people, that's usually what they say.
yeah, gesture drawing is. Do you guys ever do? Or do you guys have herring classes that you take, or
It's optional
it's
for my
optional?
degree at least, so I haven't taken any yet, but I've been considering it.
Okay.
And in Jason Guy's class, Professor Jason Guy, his sketching course, it's like a 100 level course. He has us do gesture drawing sometimes as a warm up.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I would. Kind of depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you're wanting to be like a painter,
Hmm.
I would try to really kind of focus on your values. Because like right now, I'm just kind of focusing. Like, there's really no detail yet. Like, this is kind of the uh, just a blocking stage of like a painting. But let's say like I kind of like to work as an oil painter and kind of go from dark to light
Hmm.
and just kind of go from there. And then kind of finesse the details later. So I kind of go from general to specific. If you're trying to be a character artist, you'll definitely want to learn about anatomy. And Andrew Loomis is probably one of the best anatomy books or figure drawing books that I've seen. And I can put a link. There's so many links I know I want to show you guys, but I'll promise I'll put it there. But
Okay.
uh, he uh, he was a illustrator during the golden age of illustration. So this was back in like the 50s. Uh,
Okay.
and he really stressed the importance of kind of like having a mannequin figure first so that you can kind of draw from your mind. So like you're kind of starting off with, so let's say, actually, I'll kind of hide this first. Uh, I'll create a new document, actually. I'll go back to this one.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see here. So let's say, kind of zoom in here. So Loomis, for example, so he would start with like let's say for the torso, he would start with like an egg shape, and then he would go with like this T principle of like the clavicle, so kind of like a V shape,
Hmm.
and then from here you go like the breastplate, and then you would have your kind of like your rib cage. So you kind of develop the latissimus dorsi muscle.
Hmm.
Then you got your obliques. So you kind of develop this method of kind of breaking things down um, in a way that's kind of you can turn it from every direction in your head. So like let's say if I wanted to turn it in space,
Hmm.
I can kind of apply this T principle. So any time this T would turn in space, one side would get more foreshortened than the other. So let's say I kind of do the same thing here. Be kind of like,
Yeah. That's really cool. I'll have to keep that in mind next time I'm gesture drawing.
yeah,
I'm not too great at it. I kind of just started, but I mostly go off of shadows and kind of outlines and stuff. Pretty basic, but I think that's really
definitely.
helpful to
No
break
problem.
things down in a 3D space.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
we have a question from Jason again. He says, "What is your opinion on fan art? Do you think it's good or bad?"
Fan art, I think it's great. It depends on the context. I think some people, you can get in the trap of that's kind of all you create. I think fan art's a great starting off point, and you can make a career out of it. But the problem is, I feel like you kind of lose your own individuality as your own like artist when you do too much of it, and that's all you do. So if you don't come up with your own IPs or sorry, original content, you can kind of lose sight of who you are as an artist. But there's no harm in it. Like I think it's great. You can get into trouble though at like conventions, like if you make a huge buttload of money, like from Disney
Hmm.
stuff, and then Disney gets a hold of you. But I mean, for the most part, though, it's kind of like small fish. Like they're not really gonna arrest somebody for making the occasional dollar. But
Yeah.
who knows with Disney? I don't know. I don't know. But
Speaking of fan art and stuff, what would you say are some of your sources of inspiration, like video games, movies, books?
yeah, I would say. I mean, lately it's been like. I mean, I love sci-fi films like 2001: Odyssey, and
Hmm.
uh, but lately I've been really loving. I've been looking at Sid Mead's art. Like, are you guys familiar with Sid Mead or Ralph
Uh,
McQuarrie?
I'm not.
Um, if you guys haven't heard of them, I know at this point have been saying I've been posting a lot of links, but I'll have a crap ton of links to show you guys. But
I can do a quick Google search.
no, you're fine. Well, Sid Mead is he was the premier artist for Star Wars. So like the original Star Wars, like he was the one who concepted alongside George Lucas um, the Star Wars vision. So like um, all the characters, kind of their look. I mean, obviously everything didn't make the cut, but
Hmm.
he was able to kind of get an idea of what the world looks like up close, you know.
Yeah.
And he did all of it in acrylics too, so we had none of this digital art back then um, around. So,
Hmm.
um, and Sid Mead also he did the concept art for Blade Runner back in the day, and both are gone unfortunately, but really really great artists. I would consider them the godfathers of like concept art alongside Frazetta. Um, so like really good stuff, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely seen some of his work before. It was I probably just wasn't able to recall the name, but it was a pretty big source of
Yeah,
inspiration for me. Like
I think so.
his art style is so iconic. It's like the original retro sci-fi. It's super iconic.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say right now I'm adding in textures. Like when you look at like stuff like Frazetta's or Sid Mead, you'll notice in their paintings. Again, this is kind of like the blocking in stage, but pretty soon here I'm starting to add in texture to uh, some of the mountain ranges, or I might add in buildings later. But
Hmm.
I just kind of want to add a base of kind of just kind of base meshes of texture. But also I want to identify a light source. So let's say here, actually I'll go on top here. So I'm going to do a lighten layer. I'm going to turn on my, and I'm just using basic Kyle brushes, like default brushes, nothing too special.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna go a little bit lighter. So I'm not going too crazy with the contrast yet. Like this will be kind of come later. But let's say that the light source is coming from this direction. Um, we'll go a little bit higher. And then here, I can start to can use the lasso tool to kind of break in more of the shadow ranges of the mountains here. And all I'm doing is I'm holding down shift to keep adding in these parts or these segments. And then I'm using my eraser to kind of fade in. So if I were to go zoom in, I can fade in these parts. And I can do the same thing on this range. So notice I'm not really zooming in too far in, like I'm just kind of going kind of general. And then later I can kind of zoom in and kind of see where that goes. So I'm just,
Jason wants to know if you've seen any concept art for Avatar: The Last Airbender. I personally haven't.
yeah, oh yeah, I actually have the book. Are you referring to like new one, like the new Avatar?
Probably the
Oh, the
classic.
Airbender. Sorry, the Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I have that book too. Yeah, definitely. It's gorgeous, especially the backgrounds. Um, yeah, I know you guys are gonna be so jealous, but these I forgot who's the creator's name. Can you type that in there
Of
in the
Avatar?
chat? Yeah,
Let me see.
or the art director. Gosh, yeah, I'm losing it. But I got to attend a talk by the art director um, at one point, and he was saying how when you're doing environments, his advice was to think about what the time of day is. So like right now, I'm thinking I'm either going to make it late afternoon or early morning, and I'll kind of figure that out as I go. But I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind, and like in terms of how I want, uh, the time of day to be, and also in terms of mood, what's the weather? Like, let's say if I make another version of this, and if it's overcast, you can do one iteration that's overcast and one that's like more sunny,
Yeah.
and you can just kind of play with that with the lighting. So I'm just kind of
I typed the Airbender thing into Google. I believe it's Brian Konietzko.
yes, that's it.
Okay.
Perfect. That's the name. It's like at the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't. But yeah, look at some of his stuff if you ever get a chance, guys. I think I'm pretty sure some of his stuff is online, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of his stuff. I mean, if you have his art, I mean, if you have the art book of uh, Last Airbender, I mean, it'll be in there too, though. So
I'm gonna type some of his art in and see if I can drag it onto the stream real quick. Let me see.
I'll have to binge watch that on Netflix again. It's been a while.
I'm definitely missing out because that's all anybody ever talks about, and
Oh yeah.
I'm certain I would like it, but wasn't part of my childhood, and yeah, I just never. These are really amazing though. I'm looking through them right now.
Oh yeah.
Super cool.
There's a. Do you guys have the art book, or whoever typed that? Do you have the art book of that, or?
Yeah. Jay, do you have the art book of Avatar? There's a little bit of delay on the stream, so
Oh, no problem.
I'll probably answer here in a little bit. Josh Polk just dropped into the chat.
Hello, Josh.
I've been looking on eBay a little bit and Amazon for some art books. I'm really
Yeah, art books. Yeah.
I'm into the more like kind of gothic, kind of dark stuff. Like I've been really into Dark Souls lately. I really love that kind of unique style, like worn, torn, dark. So.
Oh yeah. You've seen the show Dark?
I have not.
No, that's pretty good too. Yeah, if you guys get a chance, I believe it's a German show, but it's been dubbed, but it's a really good thriller and kind of kind of a twist on like time travel and things like that. If you guys haven't seen it yet, but it's really
Sounds
good.
cool.
Yeah.
Miranda wants to know if you're into the Alien movies or if you've seen the concept art for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been kind of curious on if they're gonna. I mean, I'm sure they'll reboot. I mean, they've already rebooted. Um, I think with was it Prometheus? I think that was the latest hashtag or reboot.
Hmm.
I mean, I think it was okay. I mean, but I think it doesn't have quite the suspense that a lot of the older ones had. Um, but no, Alien's great. I think Sid Mead actually. I'm pretty sure he worked on some of the concept art for that, but it may be just Blade Runner and a few other ones. But
Yeah.
no, it's H.R. Geiger. That's the one. Sorry,
Okay.
H.R. Geiger. Yeah, you guys should look him up if you're not familiar, but I'm sure you guys are.
Uh,
But
Jay wants to know if you watch any anime.
you know, I don't watch anime lately, but any anime I have watched is like mostly like Miyazaki and like I think Paprika is like the next one on my docket. I need to check out. But I think the last one I saw was School Days and what's the last one I did? I want to see was it Samurai Shampoo I think
Samurai Champloo, I think.
Shampoo
Yeah.
Shampoo yeah. And I think Food Wars is another one that I
Mm.
kind of interesting. I don't know
Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
what kind of anime do you guys watch? Would you recommend? I should say.
Um, I've been kind of getting into it recently. Like, I'm not that well versed, but the two I've enjoyed most are Doctor Stone, which is like basically the premise is one day everybody turns to stone and they're frozen for like 3,000 years and then everybody starts to come out. So the entire world has collapsed and it's basically humanity cultural reset. It's very good.
What's it
Um,
called again?
Doctor Stone.
Dr. Stone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, got to give this recommendation. Everybody who watches this show is like, it's got to spread like a virus. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Nice. I still have not seen that, but
It's
obviously the memes you can't miss.
yeah,
But,
it's on Netflix. It's just really unique. So
yeah, if you guys want to drop links to anime recommendations, my buddy's been trying to get me more into anime, so
hmm
he's been creating a list for me. So if you guys can educate me, that'd be appreciated.
no
Because
doubt.
honestly, like the reason why I got into some of the Miyazaki stuff was his principal environment artist who does like beautiful work. Like, I mean, I think he does. I think some of the backgrounds for those movies, like Spirited Away, for example, I think was in gouache or maybe even acrylic.
Okay.
Hell, it might even be oil because I know Miyazaki is definitely a stickler for traditional stuff, which is great. Um, but I could be wrong about the medium though. But I just love the environments, the environment paintings.
Have
Um,
you seen any Studio Ghibli movies?
yeah, you mean in theaters or just?
Uh, either.
Yes, I still need to see Porco Rosso though. That's the one. That's the one. The Ghibli film I have not seen yet.
Jason
Um,
wants to know. Apparently, Studio Ghibli switching to 3D. How do you feel about that?
are they? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Is that? Well, it's funny because I don't know if you guys saw a link to, or there's this video of Miyazaki reacting to uh, these guys who are developing like artificial intelligence, and he was kind of shaking his head, um, kind of saying how it was very uncanny valley. Um, I'll post that link too, but it's kind of amusing. I mean, they're not like I think they work for him, but he was still kind of. I think he was suspicious of the idea that machines can take over artists' job, but I don't think he's afraid of that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he was more. He was. I think he was visibly disgusted by the display of. It looked like a corpse kind of walking on the ground. It was kind of like a. I think it was more fit for a horror game, so maybe Miyazaki wasn't the best audience for it for that demonstration. But But yeah, you'll have to see it though. It's better to explain
Okay,
through the video, but
sounds good.
yeah.
Um, okay. Yeah, CGI can be kind of iffy, so if you've ever heard of Berserk, they have like the art in the manga is really incredible. It's like some of the best art in any manga, and they made an anime of it, and it's like partially CGI, and it's terrifying. It's horrible.
Okay, there's I forgot the name of it, but what's that compilation of animation on Netflix? I forgot the name of the show. Well, it's like a compilation of short films of like animated films. Gosh, it's escaping me right now. Um, well, I'll post a link to that.
Jason said it's Death, Love, and Robots.
That's it. That's it. Thank you. Perfect. It was at the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of that? Did you guys have any opinions on that? You guys seen it?
I think I saw it in my recommended, but I haven't watched it.
I
Jason
think,
says it's very good.
yeah. I mean, it's really well executed. I mean, um, one thing I wanted to mention, this is kind of off topic, but
Mm-hmm.
so for the concept, I generally like to prioritize my like foreground, middle ground, and background. So generally, you're going to have more contrast in the foreground. So like this part of the composition, and and then as the farther you go back, you're going to have more depth of field. So the contrast is going to get a lot lighter and not quite as focused.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something like guys like Da Vinci were really good at back in the day too. Like he would kind of create like a blue haze on things in the background, um, and that would kind of sell the idea that okay, that's in the far distance versus some of the more contrast items in the closest to us, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
if you
spoke.
guys ever get a chance to take a Heron class, I would definitely. I mean,
Yeah, I've wanted to, but I haven't found enough space in my schedule just yet. So
yeah,
maybe next
definitely.
semester.
The hard part about being a college student is just like there's so many like you guys. It's tough to focus on a portfolio when you're kind of dragged in so many different directions.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and it's like ideally the way it would work is that you would be kind of more in an apprentice kind of situation where you're kind of once you kind of find what you want to do, you're almost kind of put in the studio system where you're learning from somebody who's been doing it for a while, and then uh, you can kind of go from there. But in college, it's just kind of tough because you're taking all these gen ed classes or you're taking classes still that have nothing to do with what you want to do. And it's just kind of hard to reconcile things when you're kind of again you're pulling all these directions. But that being said, though, it's also a good thing because you're exposed to a lot of different disciplines, but it can be hard to focus too. So
For sure.
as long as you're aware of that, I mean, I'm sure you are. But
You spoke a little bit earlier on like you have a list of your goals. What would you
yeah,
say are some of your current personal goals, and how do you go about organizing them, prioritizing?
sure. Actually, one of my personal goals, this is kind of more of a process thing. I want to get more into traditional painting again,
Mhm.
um, kind of get into illustration more traditionally. Because I feel like digital and traditional, I've noticed, has kind of fed into each other for me in that way, um, and kind of combining the mediums together. Uh, Especially like looking at older stuff like Sid Mead and Frazetta, like they kind of working in uh, acrylic and oil, and I kind of miss that in a way. You kind of see behind me. Well, I'm working in a studio right now. It's just my easel in the back,
Mhm.
and it's kind of been taking a back seat, so I kind of miss that. But I'll find time though, and also like it's one of my goals to get my some illustrations into like some card games. So maybe like Pathfinder or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to submit some stuff in a couple months once I get a few projects done. But and yeah, work on more games
Yeah,
at
I
this.
love the artwork in card games like
Oh yeah,
Hearthstone, uh, some Legends of Runeterra, Elder Scrolls Legends.
yeah, it's
Some of
gorgeous.
the illustrators that worked on those are some of my favorite.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I know, Cade. We were talking about SIGGRAPH. I really think that's a great avenue for you guys, and I really hope that once everything kind of blows over with this pandemic, you guys can attend that as volunteers, just because uh, it's one thing to go to the conference, but if you can interact with actual professionals behind the scenes, like it'll be pretty beneficial to you.
Hmm.
Um, like I personally didn't get to be a volunteer like when I was a student, but I think it would. It's pretty valuable.
Miranda wants you to tell us a little bit about what SIGGRAPH is.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, SIGGRAPH is a conference that's usually held. It's usually held in LA. I think in previous years, it's been held in places like Hong Kong, and other places in Asia. I think Shanghai. I think I might
Hmm.
have to check that, but um, I went back in 2012, and it's a 3D conference primarily, but it also has uh, it consists of workshops from people in the industry, so like from bigger studios and smaller studios, and it's really great for being up to date on the most cutting edge trends, like any kind of things on 3D, VR, photogrammetry, AR stuff. Um, SIGGRAPH is actually what was kind of the jumping off point for John Lasseter, kind of barring kind of the current controversies going through. But he was able to show Pixar's first short there at SIGGRAPH, and that was the first ever 3D animated short to that extent of complexity. And I think it was Wally B. I think that was the name of the short. It was back in 1988 or 87, I think one of those
Hmm.
dates. But he showcased that to in SIGGRAPH, and it was really groundbreaking at the time. And so SIGGRAPH really is a platform for the most cutting edge computer graphics in the world. And everybody from around the world goes to that conference. And and what I was talking to Miranda and Cade about was a volunteer program. Like if you apply, like obviously not this year because of everything going on, but usually you can apply. So you'd write an essay, kind of stating your interest in CG and why you want to get into the conference. And if you get through, you'll have to work like I think 30 or 20.
Uh-oh. I think Rolando froze. Can you hear me, Rolando?
Hours a week as a
Oh,
volunteer or however long. You hear me okay? Oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Gotcha.
skipped a little bit, but it's all good.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, SIGGRAPH is a conference that you can attend where uh, you guys heard about the whole John Lasseter short and Pixar. Uh,
I haven't.
okay, yeah. So SIGGRAPH is where John Lasseter showed that first short from Pixar, like Wally B.
I'm gonna have to
Uh,
look it up and play it on stream.
yeah, yeah.
Let's
I would
see.
bring that up. So, but it was really groundbreaking at the time, and SIGGRAPH is a really great platform for uh, showcasing the most cutting edge technology in computer graphics. And
What
and
was it
also
again? The name of the short?
Wally B,
Wally B.
yeah, Wally. I'm pretty sure that's the name of
Let
it.
me see.
Back in 1980, like late 80s.
The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. Is that it?
There you go. That's it. That's it.
Okay.
Didn't know the
Yeah.
complete name, but it was yeah.
Let me see here. Lucasfilm Computer Graphics Project.
Yes, yeah. That was when yeah, Lucasfilm and Pixar were still kind of you know intermingled. Obviously, that'll be a chunk of change, but if you split it with other people, like if you go to Airbnb, like I'd probably recommend doing that if you ever go.
Okay. I noticed in the credits on that short you mentioned, Ben Burt worked on the sound.
Oh
He
yeah,
worked in Star Wars as well. Some other things.
really? That makes sense.
Yeah, I think he developed the sounds for R2D2. So,
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
hmm.
There's that Lucas Disney connection right there.
Oh yeah.
So right now I'm just kind of focusing the composition with light. So I'm just kind of figuring out, okay, so maybe I want some of the highest area of contrast is where your eye is going to look, and also you kind of want it to rebound within. So
Okay.
yeah. So at this point, I'll continue to just keep adding detail to this, and I'll add color too afterwards. Um,
It's
yeah, and if
coming
you have
along
any
pretty
questions,
well.
yeah. Does anybody in the chat want to be a 2D or 3D artist, or you guys kind of start figuring it out, or
Let's
what's
see.
your what are you guys trying to get into?
Jays wants to be a 2D animator.
Okay,
Miranda wants to get set into character design.
gotcha. And I asked this question to everybody. Like I asked Cade and Miranda before. Are you all willing to move out of the state or even out of the country? Like, is that a possibility for you guys? Or
Like I said earlier, for me, yeah, I think so. Um, I love Indianapolis. Yeah, Jay said yes. He he said hell yeah.
emphatic hell yeah, I
Yeah,
get that.
pretty much mirroring what Miranda said.
Yeah, it's honestly, guys. I mean, look, there's opportunities here, but I mean, there's a lot more opportunities for like concept stuff and things like that, like elsewhere. But I mean, things are getting better though. I mean, the remote culture is I mean, especially with the pandemic going on, it's gotten better. But I think we're still a long ways away from like primarily working from home. So I mean, unless you're like freelance,
Hmm.
primarily freelance,
Henry
and there
said
are
he wanted to be a 2D animator and 3D.
okay, gotcha. So are you guys kind of a good mix in terms of like seniors and juniors, or are you um, almost senior?
From the people in chat right now, I think it's mostly seniors and graduates.
Juniors, graduate. Okay, gotcha.
Hmm.
You guys been adapting to this whole online switch? Has it kind of been a challenge for a lot of you, or
Let's see.
not too bad?
I'm wondering how it is for the professors. We have Polk in the chat, so we can see what his opinion is on it.
Yeah. No, that'd be great. I'm kind of curious to hear about that. Like,
Yeah. Um, I'm not really sure. What do you think, guys? How are you liking the switch from physical to online? Is it going good for you? Miranda said she did not enjoy it.
yeah, it can be kind of a mixed bag, but
Yeah.
well, I think that yeah, the hardest thing again is just like kind of translating, like especially with I know with fine arts, especially like it's hard to translate having studio time to an online environment. It's just there's something missing. It's not tangible. It's not like you're
Hmm.
missing that interaction. Like there's an element that's missing. So it's completely understandable. Um, you know,
Henry says it's easy to work from home, and he's adapting to it.
that's good. No, I've always been curious on the. I've been asking everybody that question, like, and not just animators, but I think the artists tend to be a little better at adapting than some other people, though. I think I've
Yeah,
noticed.
definitely.
Not too surprised, especially if you're an introvert. This is kind of like an ideal,
Hmm.
like an ideal situation in some ways. But I,
Jay
I can.
said he's a pretty good self-starter, so it wasn't too bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, has anybody had experience with freelancing? Have you, do you guys do internships, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had an internship the spring semester at the Benjamin Harrison House on Delaware Street in
Right
Indy.
on.
That was pretty interesting. They had me doing all manner of stuff like branding, corporate design, documents, and even some video editing for their social media.
Gotcha.
And as far as freelancing goes, I've done some stuff for friends, and a little bit here and there, but eh, I don't know.
One thing I've noticed, and this is when I was transitioning out of BitLoft, was when you're looking for jobs, when you're kind of going from project to project, because that's usually how it's going to go. When you're in a studio kind of setting, you want to like LinkedIn is going to be your friend in terms of announcing that you're looking for work. Like a lot of people are shy about that, but you want to make sure that you're kind of putting the word out there, um, and that you're saying, okay, if anybody had like knows of any leads, or this is kind of some updated passion projects I'm working on, you know, kind of take a look, or just kind of put the word out there that you're looking, um, and you can be slick about it too. You can kind of just like,
You froze a little bit again. I think you can hear me though.
again, show something you're working on and say, yeah, oh, sorry,
It just skipped.
the skip. Okay,
Yeah, it's all good now though.
gotcha. Okay. Uh, but yeah, you want to, like, if you're hopping from studio to studio, you want to make sure that you're putting the word out there on LinkedIn that you're looking for work, and you can be slick about it by showing some stuff you're working on, and kind of also kind of adding near the end is like, yeah, if anybody knows of any opportunities, if anybody needs a concept artist, shoot me a message or something.
Sure.
Something as simple as that. It's uh, that's what LinkedIn's for. It's honestly, that's where a lot of people mostly get jobs, studio wise.
Okay.
You guys have heard of ArtStation too. You guys have probably been on there a lot. I mean, that's another
Yeah,
place to. Uh,
I definitely have. LinkedIn has a new feature, Miranda says, where you can like announce that you're open to work.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. As far as internships go, Jay said he went to Poland for his internship.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually asking. You said your name is Jay,
Yeah, Jay or Jason.
Jason. Yeah, I was talking to Miranda and Cade earlier, and I was asking them if they were still doing the Poland thing. So that's good to hear. Yeah, that's always a good opportunity, um, especially since Poland seems like they have a pretty booming video game uh, community there in terms of developing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's where CD Project Red is.
yeah, yeah, CD Project Red, and um, yeah, UK
I
as well. If you
think
guys are willing to.
I might be wrong. I don't know. I think where's Naughty Dog Station? Because I feel like that might have been Poland.
I think I think Naughty Dog's in Santa Monica, isn't it? Something like
Maybe.
that.
Okay, yeah, it is Santa Monica.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well,
Might have been thinking of something else.
yeah, one of my former, uh, like we were, well, actually, I was his, I think I was his TA back in 2013, but he works there at Naughty Dog. He's like a technical artist. Um, if you look him up, his name's Doug Schieber,
Hmm.
but he was kind of like, he was, I think, slated to do like a talk at Ball State or something, but he couldn't because I think Last of Us was delayed or something. So
Okay.
production was kind of clogged on that. But um, but yeah, like you'd be surprised on like how big some of the studios are close to us. I mean, NetherRealm is in Chicago, and that's only 2 hours away.
Wow.
You wouldn't even think about that, right? I mean, um, but yeah, I would start out, if you're looking for a job, I would start out with just obviously develop your passion projects. but also continue to look for like freelance work that can kind of get your feet wet. And then from there, like always kind of update LinkedIn with, the fact that you're kind of looking. Um,
Yeah. Jay said he wants to work at Blue Blue Studios. Have you ever heard of them?
what is it?
Blue Blue.
Blue Blue.
It's like a 2D animation studio.
Is that in the US?
I think so. Yeah. I found them on Instagram, and their stuff is really nice. I'm gonna type their Instagram handle in chat for people who
Right
want to
on.
see it,
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that place, but I mean,
or you can
I may have
Google
heard
it.
of it.
They're also um on other social media.
Just so you know, guys, I'm not this willy nilly with layers usually. I'm just doing for the sake of quickness.
No naming.
Yeah, no name. I would usually go with like folders, but just for the sake of speed, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
just locate this. Oh, also, one way to kind of dive into this kind of depth of field is to kind of again separate it, like maybe with a light pass. So like let's say I'll do a light and then I'll kind of brighten that a bit. So like if I were to take that out, you can kind of see the difference.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of blend that in a bit. Probably more with a soft brush, but at this point too, you can start adding in color. So I generally like putting in a red tone or like some kind of warm value. Like a lot of oil painters would actually coat their painting like a certain color before adding in like the other colors later, just so that the warmth would kind of seep through the surface.
Oh.
So you kind of have that underpainting. Um, so I love oil painting, so I kind of like to work in that kind of way. Kind of start with value first, or going from dark to light, and then kind of finesse the colors as I go.
Mm-hmm.
So from here, I'm just kind of adding in color layers and just kind of figuring out, okay, again, what time of day is it? Is it overcast? Is it like where can I add in my cool values? Um, kind of gradually kind of blocking things in. Might even start adding in some greens too.
Okay.
Um,
So you start out in like an RGB kind of color space.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I'm not pressing down too hard. Like I want some of that red to seep through a bit. So it's kind of it's something more you can feel than see. Like it's kind of a subtle thing, but it really kind of makes a difference in terms of kind of bringing things together. So not everything is just kind of one solid color. Uh, and also, I'll probably start adding overlays on some of the mountains so I can kind of get an idea of what that's going to look like here.
Okay.
See here. So gradually. So I'm probably going to add some warmth to the side of the mountain a little bit here. And then I'll do an overlay to kind of punch up the light a bit. So I'll check in like an orange yellow tone.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of punch up that light in certain areas that kind of need it. Just kind of use the eraser as a blending agent.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, I noticed like a lot of people use the blending tool or the smudge tool, but I don't really like it too much just because I feel like it doesn't feel organic.
Yeah.
But I feel like the eraser and I feel like the brush kind of do a better job at just kind of blending things.
Yeah, I feel like the smudge tool can make things look a little blurry sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, you can just kind of keep building things up, and also like as you're experimenting with color, you can unify things later with like, let's say I wanted to add in more of a blue tint to certain areas, I can do that, and then I can erase things later if I don't like that. And also, if I wanted to add some texture, let's say I go to like a Kyle brush. Let's see here. And I can do a multiply on top.
Miranda wants to know, did you ever have to work with logos or branding, graphic design stuff when you first started, or have you always found opportunities in concept design?
I've definitely had to work with logos before. I think um, it was kind of a mix, kind of at the beginning. But I think gradually, as you figure out more what you want to do in terms of what kind of concept work that it is, like in terms of focus, my problem was I didn't know what part of concept design I wanted to go into. So I think that was my whole issue. So I wish I would have kept some of my older images. I think I kind of deleted them just because I was ashamed of them. But uh, if you look at some of my older work, if I ever had them, it's a lot of it is unfocused. Like it doesn't really have like I had a little some characters and I had a little bit of props, some illustrations, but none of it was really uh, focused. And if you looked at it as an art director, you couldn't really tell who I was as an artist or what I wanted to do. And it's a hard thing to do. But if you kind of put your shoes in, if you put yourself in the shoes of a art director and kind of figure out, okay, does this person, where can I put this person easily in? Like, does he or she know what she wants to do?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I going to have to figure that out for them? Like, because if they don't want to have to do the work of figuring out where to place you. Like they want to know exactly what you want to do just by looking at your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if somebody looked at my stuff, they might see, oh, this guy likes sci-fi. Um, what I could do better though is if I maybe subdivided my stuff better in my portfolio, or kind of made more subsections. Like this is more props, things like that. There's always things you can improve on your to make it more focused.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, just kind of look at it from an art perspective or art director's point of view really helps kind of weed out some things. And I've noticed too in a lot of a student's portfolio, and this is not a knock on everybody because I do that still sometimes too, is that it's hard to take out work that we like, but we know deep down inside that it's not good.
Yeah.
um, we kind of got to weed out, things that are your favorites, but may not fit the portfolio the best. Just kind of, you have to be ruthless with a fine comb, just kind of going through everything. And honestly, when I was at SIGGRAPH, I was talking to a person from Real FX, and they hired somebody just on the strength of one work.
Wow.
Uh, it, if you have any kind of weak stuff in there, it's gonna be more to your detriment than help. So guys, if guys and gals, if just make sure that your stuff, if you have one solid piece, that's better than like five mediocre ones in a solid piece. Just put the best stuff in there that you can, and you should be updating your portfolio like every month or other month or so, with better stuff. Uh, and also have your resume at the ready, like too, because um, full-time work, like the kind of stuff that you saw at Disney back in the day, like you guys have heard of the Nine Old Men, right? The Milt calls and
I believe I've heard of it. You might want to explain what it is for our viewers.
yeah. So for any of you who haven't heard of the Nine Old Men, they were like the fabled um, OG original animators at Disney Studios, the golden age. So they're the ones who worked on Pinocchio, Snow White. They're the ones who kind of created the 12 principles of animation back in its heyday. So, and with that being said, they also so yeah, they kind of wrote the book on animation techniques, literally. Um, but back then, you could stay at a job like some of those guys stayed there from like what Snow White was in 1938 or something, 1939. Some of them stayed until like the late 80s, like early 90s. And in their older years, they trained people like Milt Kahl or not Milt Kahl, but Glenn Keane,
Mm-hmm.
who animated the Beast on Beauty and the Beast, and Ruben Aquino, I think he worked on Little Mermaid. So they mentored the next generation of animators. Um, so those guys, the nine old men, when they were older, they would mentor the next generation who worked on the Renaissance, the Disney Renaissance of the 90s. So that was the next crop. And this current crop that came after those 90s guys is the guys who are making like Klaus or, some of the stuff you see from CalArts or the Steven Universes or the CalArts style that you see. So you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have this kind of post Disney Renaissance kind of thing or style going on. And it fluctuates, right? So you had the 3D thing, you had the 2004 firing of 2D animators. And I think that coincided, I think that was after Treasure Planet. I think that's when 2D animation really started to nosedive. Um, but nowadays, though, you can find work as a 2D animator if you kind of couple your skills with storyboarding. Um, to be honest, like if you want to get into 2D animation, you'll have to be willing to move overseas as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there's not work in it. I'm just saying that it's not as plentiful as say like storyboarding jobs just yet. Now, hopefully, with Klaus, the success of Klaus, we'll be getting more 2D productions. But in the meantime, it's still going to be kind of figuring out what the next thing is going to be, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you kind of have that skill set of like storyboarding, your art fundamentals, you can kind of go from there. But it's going to be an interesting time. I'm really excited for us, like in terms of, especially with the whole VR thing, video games, Netflix. There's so many opportunities with Netflix now in terms of, especially working remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting
Miranda,
time to be artists, guys.
Miranda and Jay said they both love Klaus.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. What did you guys? What did you guys like most about it? Like, did you guys like the story too, or?
Is that where can I watch that? I haven't seen it.
I think it's on Netflix still, isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Miranda said character design, but the story made her want to cry.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised. I mean, I'm not saying I thought the story was going to be bad, but I didn't really go in with any expectations other than, oh, it's going to be a really good-looking 2D film. But if you guys look online, there's a really interesting. I think there's some videos on how they did the shading for the characters, how they got that kind of painterly fill on it, and I think they developed their own proprietary software for kind of having those shaders. Because I was kind of geeking out about like, how did you get to have that painterly fill on these kind of 2D characters? Like this, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look, I'll have to find it. If I find, I'll post it on there for you guys. But yeah, it's, to me, like nowadays, it doesn't matter what the medium is. Like if whatever you prefer, 3D, 2D, stop motion. I mean, hell, Leica's doing hybrid stuff. Like they're doing like mass prototyping in 3D and CG or CG and stop motion workflows. Like they're just printing out like hundreds of heads, like for like Paranorman or and just kind of animating from that. Like it's really cool stuff, guys.
Miranda also said some of her favorite was the geometry of some of the shapes, and Jason really loved the special effects on it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
Yeah, I
showing
just
some of the characters and art from the thing off on the stream right now.
Oh, you're showing some characters.
Yeah,
Nice.
and
I
it's all
think.
2D.
Yeah. Well, I think.
3D model. It looks great.
I think the only 3D elements were like maybe some of the vehicle or the buggies
Mm-hmm.
with the horses, I think. But other than that, I think everything was animated 2D and backgrounds were 2D as well.
Yeah.
Gorgeous stuff.
Miranda said Leica is her jam, and that's where she wants to work.
Yeah, yeah. Did you know Leica? Their CEO is like the son of Nike, the guy who owns Nike. Did you guys know that?
Wow, I did not know that.
I think it's Travis Knight. I think
little frozen. It'll catch up in a
I think
sec.
he's the son of the Nike guy.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. Got it? Okay.
Yeah. Jason said they pitched Klaus as a 3D animated movie.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember that. Yeah, that's right. Oh, man. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I think this was back in 2014. If you guys looked on LinkedIn back then, they actually had uh, openings to work on Klaus, and the opening was actually working on the shading or the coloring. And like, I'm kind of kicking myself for not like applying for that because like me and my buddy were like, damn it. Because I think you had an opportunity to work in, I think it was either Spain or I forget which country, but somewhere in Europe, one of the studios for Sergio Pablos, um, they had like a internship slash program where you can kind of go in and kind of work with the people there who were developing those technologies. But um, these are some new times, guys. Like new things are being developed all the time, and like you want to keep a lookout on LinkedIn for those kind of things because you never know
Yeah.
when stuff like that pops up, you know. And so it's a good time to be alive for an artist, you know, despite everything going on, I think.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. That being said, oh, this kind of brings me to my next thing too. I kind of want to emphasize, you know, you guys want to make sure to value your work. Like I was talking to Cade and Miranda earlier about the importance of not underselling yourself. You guys are spending so much time in school, like perfecting your craft, that you want to be paid accordingly to your experiences. And you know, some people may say, "Oh, why are you charging so much?" But they're paying for all those years that you spent on your craft. You know, they're not just paying for the time that you're devoting to that specific project. You know, if they could do it themselves, then they wouldn't have reached out to you. So never feel guilty about charging for your work. You know.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how do you decide your pricing?
Yeah. So generally, there it kind of comes down to uh, experience, but also honestly, I would say per hour at this point, I charge for like concept art like 27 an hour,
Okay.
uh, upwards. Like that's like kind of like a starting base, but starting out like you guys coming out of school, I wouldn't go lower than 25, like for concept art especially, because I'll post some links. Like the way I look at it too is I keep a look on the tr- the nationwide kind of salaries of like illustrators and concept artists by state.
Okay.
And if I moved to LA, for example, I would raise my prices. Um, so it kind of depends. Like the way I would calculate that is I would figure out, okay, let's say an illustrator makes 60 grand a year. Okay. So I would divide that by like 52 weeks divided by 40 hours a week. And I would come up with that hourly rate that way. If I wanted to do it that way. Uh, the problem with a flat rate price sometimes is that there might be other variables, but some people choose to do that too. But I go by hourly generally, myself personally, at least. Um, that's how I was paid at Bitloft too, like hourly, but that was mostly because of contract, so it wasn't salaried or anything.
Okay. So you would prefer hourly to I don't remember the word for like getting
Oh,
paid
like flat
once.
rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would kind of depend. Like if I knew, like for example, personally, if I knew exactly how long something would take me without any kind of revisions, I would probably give a flat rate, maybe. But maybe at the beginning, I would give a flat rate to a client just to kind of give a ballpark number. But then we probably negotiate like a hourly rate, probably.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, generally I've been going with hourly and just kind of calculating. So like, let's say a client would ask me, how much would this be? So in my head, I would figure out, okay, how long do I think this would take me? And how much am I willing to get paid for this project to keep a roof over my head and make it worthwhile for me? So like, let's say if I made only $500 for this project, but it took me like 300 hours or something ridiculous. Like that's not going to be worth it, right? Because you're only making, like you do the math, right? So
Yeah.
like 300 divided by 50, that's not like not a great, right? Um, so
Absolutely.
the kind of, yeah, it depends on the situation. Like it's going to vary. And like, this is kind of not like a set in stone kind of answer. I mean, like, I don't want to, I'm not by any means the authority on that, but I think you just kind of, you just want to make sure that it's worth it for you and that you're kind of similar to kind of what other artists are charging. Cause I know like with the link I'll be sending you guys, 25 to 27 is kind of like an average for like an illustrator or concept artist per hour.
Okay.
I actually might have to check that. It might be updated now, but looking at places like Glassdoor and things like that. And I actually use a timer so that I keep track of my hours. I use what's called Harvest. It's like a software that kind of times your how long you're working, and then from those hours, it creates an invoice of how much the client owes you at the end of that pay cycle or whatever that you're
That's
working
really
on.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, man, you really don't need to use those, but I think it's helpful. You can just use like a timer or your
Hmm.
watch or cell phone. But I just kind of like to keep it organized in my way. Um, but it's really personal preference.
Yeah. How
Uh,
does the how does the harvest thing work? Is it like when you aren't active on your keyboard, does it or on your screen, does it like pause, or do you have to manually pause it?
you have to manually pause it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the only thing. But so that might be kind of the maybe the kind of argument for having just kind of a timer instead of an actual software. But I think it's helpful.
Okay.
I think it's been pretty productive for me.
Jay says he's trying to break into doing freelance stuff here on Twitch for streamers, and he's wanting to know how could he negotiate his prices because there's a lot of good artists on this platform that are lower than 25 per hour for animation.
That's okay. So that's a good point. I wanted to also add that those kind of rates are something you would expect from like a studio. Now, for uh, the average person, you're going to have to negotiate a bit more in terms of what you're willing to work for. Um, so, like I know with some commissions, like I've done things that maybe like let's say like an artwork, like let's say 1 year I was working at a studio, I would be making like 25 an hour or something, but maybe this other project I might only be making $100 or $60 on it.
Hmm.
And it's only because I wanted to do it, and that was what the person was willing to pay. There's really no, in terms of like those kind of personal commissions, I feel like it's almost kind of a wild west
Yeah.
in terms of like pricing because everybody's going to be different. Um, some of these guys have limited budgets, obviously. Some of them are fans. You don't want to charge too high, but also you want to make it worthwhile on your end. So you don't want to be taken advantage of. So I would just like which kind of work are you talking about and considering like illustrations or
He said he wants to do like intro screens and like screens for when the streamer is taking a break.
okay, so like UI stuff. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I suppose.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wouldn't go. See, yeah, those are always tough. I would kind of talk to him about like I would first maybe quote kind of like how I was saying before, maybe go by hour. Let's say how much would you want to make on this thing? Like you want to figure out how long it's going to take you to do. So let's say a UI screen is going to take you like 20 hours or something. Uh, how much would you want to make that 20 hours worth it? Like if that person can afford like 25 an hour, obviously they probably can't. Um, how much would you want to charge that person to make it worthwhile to create that level of complexity, I guess?
Hmm.
And that might be different from project to project. So there's really no easy answer for that, I guess. But yeah, unfortunately for studios, it's easier to kind of gauge that. But uh, yeah, for like actual people like who want to commission, you can outline some prices. Like maybe it's maybe 100 for a screen or 200 or something, and then you can say maybe you can say preface it by saying we can negotiate prices if this may be beyond your range or something. But I would always quote them something first and then kind of go from there because
Hmm.
you don't want to lowball yourself from the beginning, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but also keep in mind that everybody's going to have a budget that's different, and you can probably gauge it by, you know, when you meet them on what they're willing to pay. Probably.
Hmm.
Uh, hope that
Henry
answers
is
your question.
that was a good answer.
Yeah.
Henry is wondering, how do you think Cartoon Network is doing, and why do most of their shows feature reboots?
You know what? I haven't really been keeping too many tabs on Cartoon Network. What what I've noticed was there seems to be kind of a sticking point on terms of like the you guys have heard of the Cal Art style.
Yeah.
Um, like I personally love it. Like I love the Cal Art style. I think it's really kind of a fun thing. I know some people have kind of said that like a lot of the designs kind of look the same, but I don't think so. I think it's pretty fresh, but um, I'm not too familiar with where they're going right now. What shows do they have that's new right now? Um, you guys,
Let me see. I know CalArts can be very divisive.
yeah,
There were some good ones in the past few years, like I think The Amazing World of Gumball isn't running anymore, but it went off the air pretty recently. That was a good
I
show.
love that style. Yeah, it's I love the hybrid style.
Let me see. Cartoon Network shows 2020. There's Steven Universe, We Bear Bears. Um, some of these I haven't really heard of. Some of these. There's Craig of the Creek, Teen Titans Go, Apple and Onion. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Some of these are like pretty Cal Arts, like Apple and Onion and Craig of the Creek definitely are.
Yeah, I think the people who kind of harp on the CalArts style are kind of just grumpy curmudgeons.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, look, I get it. I get some of the arguments, but I feel like in terms of reboots, like I'm all for a reboot if it says something new. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with any of the latest developments that Cartoon Network has in the pipeline, but I feel like only if there's something new to add to the storyline is it worth doing. But that, I mean, that goes for anything. That goes for like film. But as you guys know, Hollywood tends to reboot everything. So
Yeah.
the age of reboot in general.
One thing I remember, uh, Cartoon Network got a lot of flack for this year was their Thundercats reboot. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I've seen the art style of it, and I've seen some previews. Have you guys? What do you guys think of it? Have you looked into it at all, or?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything bad about the art style. I would say it doesn't really fit the show that well. People are uh, People are pretty upset about it.
I've noticed that a lot of obviously a lot of the people who are disgruntled have been like some of the older generation who grew up with the original. Um, so they don't necessarily identify. They don't like the aesthetic,
Hmm.
but I mean, I don't know. I have to watch it though.
Yeah, true. Henry says that DuckTales had a pretty good reboot, and he's wondering why the new reboots can't be as good.
Oh, you like the new Ducktales, huh?
Was
Yeah,
that
I think
2017?
2017. Yeah.
Let me see. Oh yeah, I've seen some clips of this. It's pretty good. Nice animation style and everything. And I remember Looney Tunes a while ago had a reboot where they were like in modern society. It's pretty underrated, but it was a great show.
Yeah, it all comes down to the writing. I mean, I think as long as it's tough, like writing, I feel like is the hardest part of the whole production. I mean, story is hell trying to come up with something original,
Absolutely.
especially if you're rebooting something, coming up with something that's fresh in a way that's not too derivative, but it also stays true to the original, you know, story. Uh, but yeah, it like honestly, that's kind of its own art form. Like good storytelling is hard to nail down, and I don't envy their position sometimes because you have to not only make a good story, but you have to contend with older fans who are familiar with the original, but
Hmm.
also like stay true to that, but also kind of make something new. So it's kind of like with Star Wars, like you're never gonna satisfy everybody.
Yeah,
It's like whether you like it or not, like it's somebody's take on it. So it's gonna polarize people either way. I feel like whatever it is.
absolutely. There's also the Teen Titans reboot, which the original is really beloved and it's getting a lot of flack for the new one.
I like the Teen Titans movie. I saw that in theaters. I think back in 2018.
Hmm,
You guys see that one in theaters? Teen Titans Go.
I have not seen that.
Yeah. I was just happy to see another 2D film in theaters. Like, uh,
Yeah, it's kind of rare.
yeah, I think like if you guys think about back to Princess and the Frog, like I think it was a really good film. I just feel like it was too much in the vein of what they had already done. And I think let's say like I've had this discussion with some other artist friends of mine, and he was saying that if Frozen was 2D, it would be just as successful as if it wasn't 3D because the story was different. I mean, we can argue all day whether Frozen had a great story or not, but like there's something about it that obviously related, was able to connect with people uh, in some way. A lot of that was probably the soundtrack, but
Yeah.
you know, this goes without saying, I guess.
Jay wants to know, what do you think about them redoing Scooby Doo every couple of years?
Yeah. Oh man, it's funny. Like when I looked at the preview, I didn't know. I'm not sure whether to be creeped out or it's a weird thing. Like I like the style, but at the same time, I'm conflicted because like with 3D, like I can't wrap my head around 3D Scooby Doo. But if I were to look at like, I don't know if you guys saw uh, some of the Popeye stuff that was going to be created, like the 3D Popeye, like that looked great, but they never made it. They made something else. What did they end up making instead of Popeye? Um, Crap. Well,
Showing
anyway,
some of the 3D Scooby Doo stuff on stream.
yeah,
I don't think it looks bad. It's just a little jarring because we've
yeah,
never really seen these characters in this way before.
exactly. That's and kind of the same thing. Like I love the 3D Charlie Brown, but when during the Red Baron scenes, I kind of got chopped out of it because uh, it felt like you were breaking that 2D orthographic style and you're
Yeah,
kind of into an immersive thing. And it didn't work,
absolutely.
in my opinion. I thought it was a beautiful film, don't get me wrong. But kind of in that same vein, again, I'd probably have to watch the Scooby Doo movie in its entirety, but uh, I mean, looks good from what I see. But yeah, again, like you were saying, it's just hard to see it as a 3D film instead of it being usually 2D.
It's always weird when characters that were designed specifically for 2D get brought into a 3D world. It
Yeah,
doesn't always work out.
exactly. Yeah. Uh, I would really be interested in seeing Calvin and Hobbes or a kind of 2D animation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Jay said, "Please stop making everything in 3D for the love of God."
yeah, good luck with that. I
Yeah.
think 3D is here to stay. Like what's Leica has definitely been giving me hope though in terms of I think they're to me I think they've been the most innovative studio for the past 10 years in terms of kind of creating something that's fresh aesthetically and also combining workflows because they've I feel like they've been going under the radar, but I think that's mostly because of uh, marketing. Um, but that's just me personally, though.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any specific films or shows you're excited about coming out soon, or anything good?
I have to rack my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember November of last year was really good. There was a lot of good live action and animated movies coming out.
Huh, we
I'll
have to
have to
see that.
think. Maybe there's some good stuff coming out in October or around the holiday season.
I hear some typing or some get some suggestions.
Let me good upcoming TV shows
Yeah.
2020. There was a rumor about a Super Mario movie coming out apparently. That's what
Ah,
Henry says.
like an actual animated film, or kind of like this the live action one that happened in the '90s. You guys remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
I yeah, that's an interesting one.
Let's see.
I that would be interesting though to see a animated 3D Mario. Kind of
It would. I wonder if it would. I mean, it might work. There's been a couple of 3D Mario games.
yeah, yeah, it's true.
Henry said it's a the Mario thing is probably going to be a 3D animated movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would be surprised if it wasn't actually.
And the creators of Avatar, I think The Last Airbender are working on a new project.
Gotcha.
That's what Jay says.
Do you guys at IUPUI, like obviously before this whole pandemic thing, did you guys have any movie nights or anything like where you hung out and watched
We
stuff?
we had like in the campus center. There's like a little theater, and we didn't really have any CGT events there, but every week they would run a movie.
Oh, cool.
So you
Right
can
on.
just pop in, watch a movie.
Chill out. Yeah.
Yeah. Miranda says we tried to do some movie things just for us, but then COVID struck.
Ooh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well. I mean, I know with this whole thing going on. I mean, you guys have like I know with some of my friends, I've been doing like drawing hangouts where like we would do kind of do something like this, but we would just be drawing and kind of showing each other like new techniques and stuff like that. I think it's kind of fun. Um, but we would like I know in the past I used to do sketch crawls with people where we would just kind of if we weren't hopping from bar to bar, we would just kind of go to like the zoo or something and just kind of draw somewhere
That's cool.
um, and get up in people's faces and draw them and be creepy. No, I'm kidding. Uh,
Miranda wants to know what kind of games are you into? She says the piece you're making reminds her of Horizon Zero Dawn.
that's actually on my docket. Like I've been playing. I've actually been playing The Last of Us, like the first one, lately, just because I've finally gotten to play it. So it's like just haven't been having time these past couple of years to play a video game. But and I'm trying to avoid social media. Well, I've been trying to avoid some of my friends who have played the latest Last of Us because
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't want to spoil anything. But then again, we shall see. Uh, I like
Yes.
Bioshock too.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Bioshock.
yeah,
That was a big inspiration for me starting out as an artist.
yeah,
Love that 50s kind of style.
definitely.
And of course, phenomenal story.
How about you guys? You guys into any specific games, or do you?
Jay said Borderlands 3.
Oh yeah, I still need to play the second Borderlands. I just got through the first one like last year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so you like the third one, huh? That's good.
Yeah. And Miranda says she's been playing Dead Space and Elder Scrolls Online.
Nice. There was a what do you call it? Um, I love Bethesda, but there's always kind of a joke on how many bugs they're trying to fix on
Yeah.
some of the thing.
And Elder Scrolls Online's a little bit better on that front, but
Yeah,
it's still pretty common. Pretty buggy still.
that'd be a fun company to work for, though. I mean, I think I mean with a game that big, you're always gonna have like bugs. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean that's why I'm not a programmer. Like I would, man, when I was working on like those educational games, like those guys would just play test it like for hours. Like I didn't see them leave their desks, and I'm like, man, get up. uh, but yeah, it's I can't imagine that. Like it takes another level of patience, and that's another thing, guys. Like you want to make sure that what you're doing is what you love to do because you'll be sitting for hours trying to fix things.
Hmm.
Um, like whether it's a change from an art director or, and also it's important to not get too attached. Like as much as we love art, like it still is a job at the end of the day. We want to put our heart and soul into it, but we also want to detach ourselves in a way too, because you're at the end of the day you're creating a product, and that's why you want to create personal projects because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket emotionally. And because if you get a bad review or something from an art director in dailies, like you don't want that to ruin your day or something. But
Yeah.
for the most part, though, like I mean, people aren't jerks with their critiques, and you can't take things personally. Like it's just they want to make your stuff better. They want you to improve. But it's so easy as an artist to take things personally, because we're sensitive, right? Like we want to do a good job.
Hmm.
We've always drawn or typed code or something, and we feel like it's a personal attack when somebody doesn't think it's good or something's off. So you want to make sure that you don't take it too personally when people give you feedback.
Yeah. Thick skin
And
is
it's
important in this field.
exactly. And if you do get a personal attack, then try to extrapolate what you can from that. Maybe there's some truth in what they're saying, but then disregard the rest because
Yeah.
they're probably just being a jerk face.
Jay said Borderlands is the reason he became an animator.
Oh, right on.
Hmm.
Just like, yeah, just that's cool.
Yep.
That's what got you in the game, huh?
And Miranda says she adores Bethesda and Fallout is her jam.
Oh, yeah,
Speaking
definitely.
of which, they are going to make a Fallout TV show. I think it's going to be live action.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
I think they're putting it on Amazon. It's by the people who directed Westworld, I think, are working on it.
Right on.
So
Yeah,
hopefully it's good.
Bethesda is really good at creating worlds that are believable. I think that's their strength.
Yeah.
Uh, Honestly, that's my favorite part of playing a. I mean, aside from the campaign, like I know when I was playing Skyrim back in the day, uh, I just love like wandering around in the environments. Just kind of taking in like, whoa, the level design is so intricate and kind of never ending almost. But
Yeah.
uh, and it's funny too because when you're playing a game, when you're working on art stuff, like you're kind of researching in a way. Like you can kind of look at it that way,
Hmm.
especially if somebody gives you crap about it. It's like, oh, I'm researching. Yeah,
That's the excuse I always use.
there you go. See, um, you just kind of want to learn what you can from the art that you consume. It's kind of
Yeah.
so. You guys start August 22nd, or do you guys have any news on when you guys are slated?
They've been flip flopping it a lot, but I think they settled on a final date. Um, Let me check real quick.
Is everybody excited to go back?
I'm excited.
That's good.
Let's see. I'm gonna check my class schedule real quick.
Right now I'm just kind of refining some details here, and also at this point like you can start adding in like that's kind of why I like to build things gradually and then kind of go into detail.
Yeah.
um, you can kind of finesse things as you're going,
I
and
believe
I
it's
like to kind of
August 24th we go back.
August 24th. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be here before you know it. Are you guys going to work on any like group projects or like a short film or a game or anything, or just kind of figuring it out at this point?
I hope so. I haven't heard anything about it, but last summer I believe they did a short film course where some students helped Baldwin on his little short film thing.
Oh, right on. That's right.
I believe so.
Yeah, if you guys ever get a chance to interact with new media people, I think that's great too, because like you guys are in the same kind of boat, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I'm glad you guys are still doing the Poland trip, though. I think that's any kind of. I mean, we live in a bubble in Indiana. Like, just going to SIGGRAPH alone kind of opened my eyes to, God, I really got to improve. I remember back in 2012, I'm like, God, my work sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's an eye opener, really. Because like this is not saying that the peers around you suck. It's just that you wanna compare yourself to not just your peers, but to the best people on all over the world. It's kind
Yeah.
of hard when you're a student because you're only exposed to your peers. Um, so you just want to kind of keep that in mind. Like anybody can get really good at this kind of stuff. It's just a matter of just kind of even when you get discouraged, you kind of keep going and create a lot of bad stuff until you create some good stuff. I mean, like Dan Baldwin's probably told you guys you're going to create a lot of crap before it's
Yeah.
um,
That's absolutely true.
I mean a lot of the concepts like I make still are crap. So, I mean it's just until you kind of keep working on it, it's just gonna get better from there until you're satisfied with something. Um,
I hope this doesn't sound unprofessional, but once we cross over the 2 hour mark, we might have to end it because my dog is going absolutely
no,
insane.
that's
If
fine. That's
that's good
fine.
with you.
I was actually going to ask you guys when you guys wanted to, because I know I'm not sure how long you guys usually do these, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
We're at the hour 59,
Oh, okay.
so I would
Perfect.
say somewhere around the 2 hour mark would be good if you think this is a good spot to wrap
That's
it up.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Well, hey, appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, no
I hope that
problem.
was helpful. I know I was rambling a lot, so
No, I learned a lot.
okay.
You're a good speaker.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Yeah, I'll post some links. I'll send it to you, Cade and Miranda.
Hmm.
Um, maybe give me until tonight because I'll have to find everything.
Absolutely.
And some areas too. But yeah, I'll post that link to that PowerPoint that I made. I was originally gonna post the PowerPoint here, but I'm like, nah, that's gonna be boring. Like nobody wants to work with PowerPoint on the stream.
Hmm.
That's like old guy stuff, right? So,
Okay.
but
Well, thank you a lot, Rolando.
hey, no worries, guys.
I think we're gonna
Yeah.
wrap it up here. Do you have any kind of final words?
Just keep working on your stuff, guys. If you get discouraged, just know that everybody's been there. You're only like your latest work is not the last one you'll do. So yeah, just keep going from there. It'll get better. You know,
Okay.
you'll make it. So
Well, thank you for that. And on that note, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for watching.
thanks,
And
guys.
until next time, I'll see you guys later.
See you guys.
See ya.